Shalom. Good evening. Good morning. It is so good to be back. Every Monday night, I get to age gracefully with Rose. I think, Rose, we're on to something here. Baruch haba, which is welcome. Welcome to TMS RoundTable. I'm Dr. Tovah Goldfine, and this is my wonderful co-host, Rose Hoey. Hi, Rose.
Hi, Tovah. Great to catch up again. Now, folks, what we're going to do tonight or today, wherever you are in the world, we're just going to talk a little bit about the work we do. But first of all, I want to thank all our previous guests all these months and point out that we very rarely actually give an opinion, etc., about anything that they do, because every single guest has extreme, what would you call it, worth for potential patients. You know, there's an opening, you know, if it's hypnotherapy, if it's mindfulness, if it's journaling, all those things are an opening to hope, aren't they? They're an opening to think that, yes, there is hope out there and lots of other people have got better. But now what's happened with us is that we've actually developed a whole series of support, not only just education, but support for people. Now, Tovah is our better spokesman, and
Rose, you can hold your own. You can hold your own, girl.
Okay. The point is that it's Tovah's idea that all this came about, and I'd like her to share this, and then we're going to talk a little bit about our own biographies, because we've had many years of experience with helping patients with chronic pain and health anxiety, as I would call it. And we'll go into that a little bit, and then we'll share what we've already started doing to help people with chronic pain. So, Tovah, over to you. Tell us about the birth of TMS RoundTable.
So, you know, it depends how spiritual you are, but everything kind of happens for a reason. And maybe mine and your soul was here in a past life. And here we are, like, meeting again for some, in Hebrew, we call it a tikkun, you know, like a karma, like we have some karma to work out. Because, you know, Rose and I, we are each other's therapists, as well as friends and colleagues and partners in helping others. And yet, what is a relationship? Is helping each other. So what happened was, this is the beginning. You know, I was into healing, chronic pain, mind, body, and you were into healing. And I didn't meet Michael Galinsky in person yet. It was maybe 2019, and I was starting to get more involved with the specific John Sarno work. And I knew the movie, and I'd seen the movie, and I was just like in touch with Michael, like bringing it to Israel and this all. And he said, listen, you got to get in touch with Rose Hoey in Australia. She's helping us. She's like the movie captain there. And I don't know if it had happened yet, because Michael came to Australia with Suki and the girls, and you hosted them and you created a couple shows there. So then we started emailing, and you were like, yeah, I'm down in Australia. And I forget if the movie was shown, and I saw the movie, but it hadn't been in Israel yet, or I don't know exactly the dates. So we started talking a little bit on email. And then I think you came to Israel and called and said, I'm here. And I'm like, well, let's meet. And you're like, yeah, but I got to go see this tomb and this tomb. And I got to go on this tour. And I got to go walk in the Jordan River. And I got to go where Jesus went. And then I got to go see where Moses stopped. You know, I got to check all these things out, because you're a real historian, by the way, Rose. You know a lot about history. So Rose was in Israel, but we didn't get to see each other, but we kept in contact. Okay, fast forward, it's 2020. Wait, it's 2020. It's Corona.
And March.
It's March. Is it 2020? It's March. Corona hits. Right. And I see this, like, it hadn't even happened yet. We hadn't dived into the pool of what was going to come to the entire world. And I saw some things on the internet. I said, we got to do something. We got it, like chronic pain, anxiety, stress, stress, illness.
It's going to double or triple.
Calls it.
Quadruple.
Yeah. And I texted Michael. I said, Michael, let's do something. Like, let's go online and educate. And he said, Tovah, it may be something. And I said, let's have a round table. He said, it's an idea. Call Rose. And I think he might have given me, or I think I might have texted you for your number. I said, do you have WhatsApp? And Rose and you said, I'm in. And that was like 3 weeks later. We're planning. First of all, at that time, we were only 7 hours apart. So I could talk to you a couple times in the day, whereas now we're 9 hours apart. So I'm in Israel and Rose is in Melbourne, Australia, and I'm in the north in Israel. So when the time changes, we're talking and we create, we decide we're going to go on live, and Rose and I know nothing. Let me say that again. Rose and I know nothing about.
Nothing. It's not the present tense.
Streaming. What is a stream?
Live streaming.
I didn't have a Zoom yet. I don't think I Zoomed yet. I had like a guest thing with Zoom. So we learned a lot from Michael, but I think Michael Galinsky knows everything. And he's like, Tovah, at some point, I don't know everything. And he's like, Tovah, I don't know. Like, go figure it out. I was like, you're the director. So this is what was happening. It was the three of us. We decided to go live April 13th, 2020. You can see our first show. It's number one of like over 50 shows. And we talk about our mission and how we want to help people not only deal with what's happening with COVID, which hadn't even begun to happen, the depth of COVID, which thank God a lot of us are behind it. But most important is, look, I like this word. Rose and I have danced around this concept, but I feel very, very, it's a sensitive word about self-healing. How can we help people heal themselves? How can we help people, educate them to know that the doctor's inside? Now it's a big chunk of words. So help me here, Rose. That's what began.
That's your forte, my darling.
My forte. How did you envision it at that time? How did you see it?
Oh, our program that we okay. Well, first of all, we took the model of education, didn't we? Yeah. And really we were trying to create reassurance that the world was in chaos at the moment. We were all isolated, but there was safety. There was a hope that there were a group of people out there from all walks of life who were able to help people. And as Tovah said, well, I was familiar with Zoom, but I became much more familiar with Zoom. And then Michael Galinsky told us about the program called Be Live. And this is the program or the platform that we operate out of now, which allows us to be live on Facebook at the same time. But somehow we don't do that as well on Zoom for whatever reason. I think because there's a time lapse. And Be Live has worked out how to sort that out. Yeah. So there we are, two therapists, one in Israel, one in Australia, with our joint connection with Michael Galinsky, and trying to figure out who to ask. Now, I knew about Sunita Merriman and her poetry. We knew Michael, as you know, and All the Rage.
We had Laura as our first guest, who had some 25 doctors she went to until she finally found that, it was coming, her mind over body, and stories like that. I mean, and then Gail Kirschenbaum, who talked about
actually, can I just mention Gail for a moment, because again, she's talking about forgiveness, but we can't forgive our caregivers until we actually feel safe in ourselves. But Gail's movie is just a fantastic movie, as is Michael's, as is Kent's movie.
This Might Hurt.
this might hurt.
Yeah.
We're missing
Amazing.
one, aren't we? Who have we
We
missed?
also had docutherapy where people, that's what Michael did. He documented John Sarno's life. I mean,
yeah, but we've also had that Israeli guy with the dolphin boy. We've had
yes,
him.
docutherapy.
Docutherapy. We've also had that producer also had the one where the guy had he was a mind-sweeping person, and his colleagues died, and he blamed himself for not finding the mind.
Cut the pain.
And he eventually had his leg amputated, but it didn't cut the pain.
Yeah.
So we've had these amazing people on. We've had John Fredrickson, The Lies We Tell Ourselves.
Alan Albas.
We've had Alan Abbas with Reaching Through Resistance, where he talked about the fact that, we're resistant help often, and we don't need help. And of course, that's based on attachment and how we had to be self-sufficient when we were little. And often it's only through the pain that we got attention. It sounds sad and tragic, but it's often how we've had to operate. We've had to actually, have a fall or whatever and cry to get attention. Maybe mum and dad were at loggerheads about something. Maybe mum had mental illness, various other things, alcoholism in the family. And we've also had several people talking about ACEs, haven't we?
Yes. Explain what ACEs is. Explain ACEs and the reason for this study.
Yeah. Well, ACEs, they've realised that most people with chronic pain have had difficult childhoods, and they developed a questionnaire. And if you get something like 10 of those questions as positive, it means that you've had a broken attachment, put it that way, an insecure attachment. So with ISTDP, for example, we actually repair that attachment. We consciously repair it and go back and continue to ask the person, how do they feel? How do they feel about this situation? How do they feel about that situation?
How do they feel about the therapist? How do you feel about this therapeutic process?
Yeah, exactly. Because they've never really been asked that opinion in that sort of way. And then, of course, it brings up anxiety. And when the anxiety comes up, we can examine it and see why on earth you would be anxious about whatever. And then examine that anxiety and see how it operates in the gut, in the striated muscle, in the arms, the legs, the head, or if we become disrupted cognitively, that's another form of anxiety. And we can examine that and see that also came from those ACEs when we didn't have anyone that would listen to us. Or we could have become parentified. Mum's not well. Dad's not well. I'm the eldest of umpteen kids. I need to be there for mama. So all of that impinges then on our adult lives when we go into a relationship. Husband, wives, children, friends, those relationships are tainted then by that ACEs.
Playing out that pattern over and over again. And for some of us, we can be aware of the pattern and our life is working, and other times we're stuck because we're not integrating, our past and our present.
Exactly. And that's the beauty about us doing this type of therapy together, because we've got the cognitive function that Tovah operates under. And as a chiropractor, she has got a great background in body movement. I love it how she...
I always say, Rose, I say on the show that we're not against medicine. We're about integrating conventional medicine. And we're if you want to go and get radiation because you have cancer, please go. But understand that you can respond to the symptoms that you might have from radiation. You don't have to be a victim of the radiation.
Well, actually, it even goes further, because anyone who does have any chronic illnesses or cancer type illnesses, they do well with considering that it's a TMS type thing.
Yes.
Okay, it's not TMS per se, but it's about anxiety, it's about anger, it's about all those things. It's about not being heard.
I happen to think, and I'll say this, online. I mean, I happen to think all autoimmune disease is the body attacking itself in some imbalance, a lack of homeostasis, and they all can be healed, and they all can be healed. I don't like the word cure, with the work that you do, especially, and the combination. I wanted to go back to ISTDP, ISTDP.
Intensive short-term dynamic psychotherapy.
Okay. What's amazing about ISTDP that I learned only in this past year, meeting Rose and incorporating that work into our work together, is that if you go on a YouTube and you write in, how do I feel my feelings? Like, you literally go, how can I feel my feelings? I looked this up, and you know what every YouTube said? What are you feeling in your body? And I didn't learn that in school. I didn't learn that growing up. I didn't even learn that in chiropractic school. The connection between, it was like a beautiful thing that my body will tell me what I'm feeling if I'm mindful and aware. And that's all the language that you use. So I'm seeing together how the TMS, the ISTDP, DTP comes together. And it's a beautiful, and this is the next level of Rose and I working together, realizing we're like, we've got something here to offer, and it's thorough.
Yeah.
It's thorough.
Tovah, let's move on to a little bit of a bio about you.
Oh, no, enough about me.
No. A little bit about being a chiropractor and finding that the patients kept coming back. I mean, you've told me this over and over many times. Please share with our audience the fact of being a healthcare professional and knowing that the people, you can resolve their problem today, but they'll be back in a month. And you wanted to change that dynamic. Can you share that a little bit, please?
I will. I'll give you the short story. So I really, chiropractic is a very philosophical and deep-rooted, beautiful healing skill. And it's rooted in, the mind and the body, because you have a nervous system that's functioning, keeping your heart beating, keeping your stomach digesting. And it's this brain and the spinal cord. Now, I happen to believe, and we learned this in school, that, well, so what's keeping the spinal cord going? And, it's kind of like an unknown energy that's keeping my body going, and it's beyond this show, So there's a natural, innate intelligence in our body. And this innate intelligence, I will veer off and say, this is the innate intelligence that Joe Dispenza, who was a chiropractor and now is a neuroscientist, this is what healed him. He knew when he broke 6 vertebrae that his body could heal. And he freaked his doctors out by telling him he's going to heal himself. And he used a lot of mindfulness and another story, because the body has an innate intelligence. And this is what I mean by self-healing. The body has the solution first, it gets sick, and then it can get resolved. And that's kind of a very simplified way, but we're meeting people, Rose, that have MS, that have had, so many conditions, and that are on their healing journey because they have the belief, they have the biology of hope, a biology of gratitude. So back to Tovah. Okay, so the chiropractic was very philosophical for me, and I also loved hands-on. I'm a massage therapist, and I do a lot of different, and I did a lot of rehabilitation. You can't come in and get an adjustment and not go out and stretch or do good walking and get in the water. So I got very into the mind and how it functions. And I always knew there was this innate intelligence. Okay. And then I did grow up with a mom who had multiple sclerosis. So it was deeper for me having an environment where I saw my mom get sick and then sometimes get well in a remission, and she would eat brown rice and seaweed and she felt better. I'm seeing the connection growing up. Okay. Fast forward, I see the body mind. And then you hear John Sarno in his movie saying, there's an intimate connection between the body and the mind. And every time you talk to Michael Galinsky, he'll always end with, Tovah, just tell them there's an intimate connection between the body and the mind. Okay. And that's where I see not just the mind and not just the body, but both. Now, some people, they're runners or they're skiers and they still have chronic pain because they got the body thing down, and maybe they're just extreme in the body, and maybe it's all about balance. So what I believe kind of brought my chiropractic into the body mind, and I like to consider myself as a chiropractor and a body mind specialist, is that it's about body, it's about balance. And many of us are off balance physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And I don't think there's a right or wrong or a color or a blue or white. It's we've talked about the many ways that people heal, and we all heal differently, but there's universal laws of nature we're talking here.
Yeah. In other words, Tovah realized that it was important to spend more time with that balance.
Yeah.
That the balance was the healing factor.
Yeah.
The balance of the mind and the body, and the assurance that your body is telling you that you're suffering for a reason. So that's lovely, Tovah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my personal story is I'm a midwife,
Yes.
predominantly. I am also a registered nurse. I still spend time with patients in different situations. I've spent time with palliative care patients. I'm also spent quite a bit of time with postnatal patients and patients with mental health issues, especially as mothers in mothers and babies units. So I've got quite a depth of understanding and knowledge of how ACEs work, how chronic pain works, and I've got that observational skill to watch the body, to watch the face, to watch the eyes. For example, a cancer patient, you'll see them and you'll see that they're in pain, and you'll say, oh, I could help you with your pain problem. Oh, but I don't have any pain. Okay, but they're showing me signs that they have. And I'll say, oh, have you got any discomfort? Oh, yes, I've got terrible discomfort. So they can't recognize their pain. Mm-hmm. But I can see that their pain is in their body, and I can follow up. And that's one of the skills that we're taught. And now move on many.
You went to get your ISTDP, your psychotherapist. That was something.
Sorry?
You became a psychotherapist after, something drew you to become a therapist.
Okay. What I did then, over the years, I did counselling training, various counselling training for antenatal patients, for different modalities. And I then had a crisis myself. My husband went and died on me. And I didn't know how to cope with that.
Wow.
Because I had this knot in my gut, and the knot said, what a relief that he's dead, because he had a lot of pain.
Wow.
But I missed him, and I didn't want him dead. So I had this knot going on, and I went to counselling to try and figure it out. I went to hypnotherapy, I thought, because I'd already done hypnotherapy training. I'd also done training in hypnobirthing to help mothers go through labour peacefully without pain. So I'd done all that stuff, but it wasn't the answer for me. And a friend of mine said, have you heard about this ISTDP? It's new in Australia. There are only a few practitioners out there. And I thought, oh, okay, I'll go there because I just want to undo the knot. And I had this sort of like anxiety had come back to me in a way that I just couldn't explain. I think basically I'd say
You physically
I
felt like
couldn't
this
have got the road.
tightness. You physically
Okay,
felt
sorry,
you
sorry.
physically felt like tightness in your belly. You physically felt this like literally like a bellyache.
How do you mean?
Like you I want that you felt you had this knot in your stomach. Like it was
Oh, okay,
constant.
sorry. No, no, no. A metaphorical knot.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay, continue.
It's just a
Yeah.
metaphor to try and
Yeah. Okay.
say that
Yeah.
I had conflicting emotions going on.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So that's it's just a metaphor. So anyway, I went to Vancouver to a training to a ISTDP conference, and I thought, oh my God, as a midwife and as a nurse, I wish I'd had this all these years.
Whoa.
So I came back and I said, I want to do this course. It's a 3-year course, and you have to videotape the patients. You have to have fortnightly supervision, and then I went on further to do an advanced training in this therapy.
Amazing.
And of
Amazing.
course, all this time, I've been looking after patients with what we call health anxiety, or a Sarno scenario would be TMS.
Yeah.
So, I've dealt with chronic pain. I've helped people with chronic pain. I've worked in that area, but with ISTDP, I'm able to reach the anxiety, help undo the anxiety, see where the anxiety is coming from, and then watch the defenses. Like, once we get anxious, defenses come up, like to push people away and feel safe. So it's been an amazing journey, and it was a personal journey that brought me to this. And now, like when I see a patient as a nurse or a midwife, I see it from a whole different angle. Actually, I'll give you an example.
So
I
true.
was visiting a hospital recently to collect somebody, and it was a 4-bedded ward, and there was an old man in the corner, and being a bit chatty, while I was waiting, there was no one else in the room, I started chatting to him. And then I found out he had respiratory issues. And I said, well, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about being in the hospital? Oh, it's terrible. And he, et cetera, et cetera. I've got all these things happening. And then I asked him how he felt about that. Then he tells me that he was put in an orphanage as a little boy. So there's our ACEs.
Oh, wow.
He then came to Australia. He was from Europe. He brought his mother out, but his mother had put him in the orphanage in the first place. So then he was angry about her, and etc. Anyway, it went on. This was only about 10 minutes. Anyway, he put his hand on his chest like this, and he said, my breathing's normal. I haven't been like this for years.
Just by expressing, just by being heard.
His anger, his grief, his sadness, all expressed in 10 minutes.
Right.
And just a casual conversation.
Right.
And it's so lovely to be able to do that with patients now.
Right.
And I even find with the grandchildren, ask them how they feel about things. And it's not a bad thing to ask people how they feel about whatever.
Oh no, it's not personal. It's like an
beautiful.
opening. It's like this is a safe place. It's like this is an interaction.
Yeah. Just a stranger casually talking to him.
Whoa.
About himself.
So what Rose and I also wanted to share, and is that we saw that we're from different worlds, different backgrounds, sometimes different flavors.
Oh, that's what makes the mix so wonderful.
Tutti frutti. Yeah. So, and that I was more like the physical TMS, like a body, mind, but sort of like feel and deal and heal. And you were more like, well, feel and feel deeper, and we saw the place that we could bring it together. And we've been doing some really interesting work and teaching, and some things to come. We have some therapeutic classes. And the beauty of what I wanted to bring up is that we started to learn about the presence process from Dr. John Sklar, who was on our show, who worked with John Sarno, and Michael Galinsky. Both had John Sklar turned Michael Galinsky onto the presence process. And I heard about this. In fact, when he was here in Israel, when we had the showing, he told me about it. And I looked at it and I said, this is a little too intense for me. I'm not doing it, And then a year later, he brought it up, and I thought this was beautiful work. And so what Rose and I 100% agree on is the presence process and Michael Brown's work, and how it helps people to implement and apply some of the difficult healing skills. Continue with that, Rose. What your experience is of the presence process.
Oh, okay. Well, it's about being in the present moment. Mm. And what Tovah is actually had realized is that if we allow people to be in the present moment, and then that's where those other TMS skills come in, like mindfulness, breathing, etc. Mm-hmm. And it's probably not the area that I work in. Well, it's not the area I work in, because I work in the present moment. And that's what I like about it, that it's creating a notion that there is a present moment.
Right.
And that the past is the past, the future is the future, and anxiety will not fix the past, or it won't create a better future. Anxiety will just hold us all back, and we'll not be able to function fully. Now, one of the things that we're not acknowledging actually at the moment is that we all have this amazing heart, and it's a symbol of love. Mm. Now, the whole presence process brings you back to that heartfelt feeling that you're worthwhile, that you matter, that your whole life matters. And it might not matter in a big way to the grocery store man, or it might not matter at the service station when you get your petrol. But at the same time, it matters because your disposition creates health and wellness. And Tovah was talking about the mind-body connection. That's where the wellness comes in. Right. That if you're aware of your breathing, if you're aware of your thoughts, and if you put your thoughts aside, it also has a mantra. And it means when you want to go to your thoughts about how bad the weather is, you can go back to your mantra instead. Right. So it's part of that mindfulness model. So
and that calms the brain down, because Michael Brown actually had a terrible neurological condition, and he couldn't get it healed with all sorts of things. And he went and searched for an answer. Yeah. And the beauty of some things that Michael Brown taught me, and we do the presence process every few months. We do a course with it and work it with, we read the 10 chapters with a group and practice the breathing. And beauty of it, which for so many people, if they just learn, and I'm practicing it all the time, like if I just respond to my grandchildren, or just respond to something someone says, as opposed to react, then we're back to like the neurological pathways. We're back to some of Dr. Schrubiner's work, when he was on our show, what did he say? He said, fear is much worse than the pain. And here's like a doctor for many years teaching and doing research and talking about fear. And you come into his office and he role plays with you about fear. And it's so you have these, what I call these brilliant doctors who are very medical, understanding the role of the fight or flight mechanism and having us understand it. And that's where, look, let's go back to the TMS paradigm. Education. Yes, and some people can get better when reading the book. It's happened. They're just, they understand the mind-body connection. They read the book, like, my hip pain is gone. It doesn't happen with all of us.
Tovah, could I please let me interrupt here?
You may interrupt.
For people who read the book and get better, their type of interaction in their early lives,
yes,
their ACE situation has not been as early as others. Now, in ISTDP, we have to learn about the whole range of mental health and emotional health, and the range. If you've got early trauma, if you lost your mother, if she's been hospitalized, if you've been hospitalized, if your father has left you or been abusive, etc., etc. If there's been a disabled child in the family, for example, that the whole focus has been on that disabled child, or a child that's, as a teenager, is needing extra attention, that child isn't listened to. And so they're not able to be heard, and they can't hear themselves, and they ignore themselves. So they're the people that won't heal immediately. But the people that have had a trauma when they've been 8 or 9 or 10, they can heal quicker. So this isn't explained, unfortunately, in any of the literature. And most of the literature and the dialogue is all about rage and anger, but it's not. It's about love. It's about love being hurt and damaged. It's about grief about that. It's about sadness about their lives. And yet, all the literature, all the stuff is all about saying it's all this rage for not being looked after. But in actual fact, the rage is about wanting to be loved and to love. Anyway.
No, so it's almost like Dr. Sarno, he stopped it. He said repressed feelings, and then then Dr. Davenlew, who created ISTDP, said, okay, what's underneath? What is the repressed feelings, and what do we do with them? And that's where John Sarno, may he rest in peace, at 96, would have gone on, and that's what he did. He referred patients to Dr.
Feinblatt.
And that's in the scene where Michael Galinsky is crying because his father was killed by a car, was run over by a car. And so it shows the connection between TMS and ISTDP.
Absolutely. Oh yeah. It's mainly to allow people to read the book and get better, but many people don't, and not to judge themselves or blame themselves because the hurt has been earlier on, and the neocortex isn't fully developed when you're a little baby. And when you're crying and you don't get your nappy changed or you don't get put on the breast, it turns to self-hatred. There must be something the matter with me that my mother or my father or my caregiver isn't taking care of me, because I'm a ball of love. I'm an absolute ball of love, and I want to give that love out, but I'm not getting it back. And why is that? So there must be something the matter with me that I'm not getting that love back.
It's so true. And Rose, also, I know some patients will be like, well, so I just want to get rid of my childhood trauma and move on. But you know that we can't get rid of it. We have to integrate. And this is what Michael Brown calls the word healing. He said, I'm replacing the word integrate with healing.
Other way around.
I'm going to call the word healing integration. Which to me is beautiful. Beautiful. And one of the most important things, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to have a little look here at the side. Okay, so Susie. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even see this. Hi, Susie. Oh, you came on very short on. I love seeing you from England.
Susie,
did you have any other questions about our personal stories?
What was that, Tovah? I was trying to speak.
Susie was she says, I've never heard your personal success stories. Well, and that goes to say it's a healing journey. I don't use the word cure. I don't like when my patient said, I said, it's not about a cure. It's about a journey. It's about the journey of life.
There is a cure. But anyway, Susie, there is a cure. The cure is about self-acceptance.
That is.
And the cure is about
It's a guarantee. It's a guarantee. Can we say that it's a guarantee if you self-accept that you're on your healing journey?
Okay. Susie, I want to again reiterate that the reason you haven't had our personal stories is because our guests are our guests. You are our guest as well. So we bring a guest into the studio, so to speak, of the world, and then we look to that guest and see what they have to share in their lives, and then we ask you to also share your experience. And thankfully, you've done that week after week, so thank you so much. But our personal journeys are our personal journeys, and they're not relevant when we've got a guest. So that's why we thought, well, we'll have one just for Tovah and Rose. So that's
it's kind of like an anniversary because it's about a year.
Yeah, exactly. Now, Colette, when All the Rage comes to Dublin, we'll be backing you, woman. Colette and I spent weeks in Melbourne putting up posters all around Carlton, talking to people. We didn't have something like TMS RoundTable to share the story, but we used to get together on a Saturday morning and have a look at our strategies and who we'd contacted.
This is for all the rage to be shown in Australia, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Yeah. No, good.
So when All the Rage comes to Dublin, you know that I'll be there with you, my darling. And, if COVID's over, I'll even come. Although I haven't had my Irish passport renewed, so maybe, I have to come on an Australian one. Yeah. And Cheryl, thank you for that.
Oh, yeah. And Karen just commented and said, there's definitely a cure now.
Oh, absolutely.
So you're saying if people have self-acceptance, they can deal with any anxiety or pain in their life. I would like to believe that with the stability of self-acceptance.
That's okay. Once you've had a few episodes or whatever you call it of how do you feel about, etc., you can accept anything. Life isn't meant to be easy, but it sure is wonderful.
Right. And if, remember that book that our parents, like in our parents' generation called You're Okay, I'm Okay? Nothing new is under the sun.
Yeah. Anyway, so Cheryl, thank you for that comment. Yes.
Hi, Cheryl.
Deeply listening. Yeah. Because that's the important thing, isn't it? Deeply listening. Now, Joe Smith is our guest, Johannes. And we had a wonderful program with he and Teshin and Matt.
Good memory.
And really, in a way, Joe, I hope you're going to come back and talk about healing from different angles because your show was wonderful.
Well, another ISTDP therapist.
And Sonia, thank you for joining us.
Siona's being sarcastic. No, you can't offer a guarantee. I know Siona. She's being sarcastic. No, you can't offer a guarantee.
No, you are your own guarantee. Not the
expert. We are the conduit. We're bringing the message to you so you can be the doctor. I always say, you're the doctor. You're the doctor. I'm just the messenger. You're the doctor. You're the psychologist. I mean, and that's true. But a lot of people don't, they're like, it's scary to be responsible. It's scary no sarcasm. It's scary. It's frightening. And once you accept the fear and once you start like what you call scaffolding and uncovering the fear and that we're human. I mean, how about pain being the human experience? How about we're all going through this?
Okay, Tovah, once you're healed and you have a somatic pain, you know that there's a feeling wanting to be expressed.
Yes.
So the healing is that pain is just a reminder that you have an unexpressed experience of emotional experience.
Yes.
That's all, and it goes away.
Yes.
It has got no use.
It's true. Yeah. And this is a very important point, Joe.
Yeah.
It is, you know, what that thing is about, the journey and destination. It is an absolute and I call it chapters in our life. They don't end, they begin, and it's just an unfolding, an evolvement. And that's self-acceptance. I'm going to make a mistake, but can I love myself making a mistake? And I love myself. Everyone gets TMS, but it's the people that it becomes chronic that we get to look at.
Maybe if you can say loving yourself, maybe it might be better to say forgive yourself.
Forgive yourself. Yes. I mention sometimes self-loving to people, and they can feel criticized. So I'm very careful. You taught me that, Rose, about about forgiving, or you said self-accepting.
Okay. Yeah, it's self-acceptance or forgive yourself. It's all of the same thing. Could I just say to Johannes that that we are a work in progress. Mm-hmm. You know, we start off as a baby. We're dependent on our caregivers. We go to school. We're dependent on our caregivers and our teachers. Right. We reach adolescence, and our hormones kick in, mm-hmm. And then we have to negotiate young adult life. And it's not until we're about 30 or so that we actually, that our neocortex is fully developed as well. So many of the things can be a struggle. And if there's an early trauma, it's difficult without that early trauma being disentangled. You become a parent. You become a grandparent. Yeah.
Well,
all of these things are work in progress.
I want to give examples. I want to give an example about what me and you've talked about sometimes and what you help me understand. And maybe there's some listeners that will take home, like some take-home tools. Rose taught me, like, I thought, you know, I'll forgive my mom, I'll forgive my dad, you know, but Rose taught me that you're allowed to be angry at a parent. I'm like, no, my mother was handicapped. How can I be angry at her? I feel sorry for her. But my mother might have done things that caused some childhood trauma. It doesn't mean we blame her. It means I'm responsible.
It's a reaction in us, yeah.
So you taught me about how it's okay to be angry at a parent. Can you talk about more like how do we deal with our anger to a parent and not put it on ourselves? How does that work when we're
that's part of what I was trying to say, that earlier on our neocortex, our brain, isn't able to absorb our emotions or make sense of them. So I suppose they sort of float around sort of free range. So when it comes to our parents, we were angry with them, but we took the blame on ourselves. But we loved them anyway. So why would you, if you love your parent, for example, why would you want to accuse them of something, supposedly? Because they didn't have the capacity to give you the love that you required. So as you integrate the fact that you love them, but you're angry with them, you can integrate that and allow you to see that the suffering that you've experienced was because their cup wasn't full enough either. And, you know, there's a lot of research on intergenerational trauma and how I think John Fredrickson says, if you've got an anxious mother, you're going to have an anxious child. Mm-hmm. So in his latest book, Co-Creating Safety. So, yeah.
Well, let me ask you, what if I were to, if I were to have an experience and where, you know, I was angry at myself, but I wanted to be able to process that anger in a healthy way, what would be a suggestion? How could I process my anger? Like, my parents I get to be angry at them. They're responsible for what they did. I'm not blaming myself. I'm responsible for being an adult. But how would I process anger healthy?
Okay, look at Joe Smith.
He answered my question.
He's answered your question.
I appreciate the importance of acknowledging that anger doesn't have to mean someone did something wrong. Oh, wow. Or meant to cause harm. It just means something was hurtful and we did not like it. Not liking equals anger. Many think anger means acting. So I don't have to act out.
Exactly.
I have to accept it. I just have to accept that I feel angry. So what's
feel
acting
in your
out
body.
this reaction, as opposed to I can respond to my anger in a loving way?
No, in a way that stands up for yourself. In a way that says, it's not fair. I mean, I love the Gandhi story, or the, like, he was very angry with the British, but he didn't tell all the Indians to go and get a sword and go and kill them all. He said, stand up to them.
Not to
Nelson
fight them.
Mandela.
So not to fight them, but to stand for something. Stand for something.
Yeah.
Wow.
Exactly. Or Nelson Mandela, when he came out of prison, he didn't tell all the Zulus and that to, well, they did it anyway, I suppose, but he offered them an alternative, peaceful alternative. Yeah. And, they had that great reconciliation thing in South Africa. I don't know how it panned out, but that was out of anger. It wasn't out of softness or weakness. It was out of his rage and his anger. But he didn't discharge it. He held it in and he stood his ground.
So we don't have to bang pillows or scream on top of a mountain to like release my repressed feelings. I can process it.
Yeah. Well, if you release them, you flatten your battery, don't you?
Completely.
So you can't use them. So if you discharge them with shouting and rage or stomping your feet, you're never going to know how to deal with the situation, because your anger is the most wonderful thing. And that's why I use those two guys. I mean, there's lots more people out there, but they're in history.
No, and it's funny because I will say this honestly, like, where did Michael get the title All the Rage? Like, he chose that for a reason.
Because it's discharge. The rage is discharge, whereas the anger is held in you.
Wow.
Joe,
wow,
he's much more senior a therapist than me. Can you write a little note if you're still with us?
No, because I love understanding. I remember when you started to use the word discharge, I didn't understand it, and I still stop and think about what that means. And in perspective, when somebody's discharging, is that when they're being defensive?
Okay. If you leave the lights on in the car overnight, you're going to have a flat battery. So you've discharged your energy. If you discharge your anger energy, you'll never be able to use it. Okay,
but is it when I get defensive? Like, wait, I know that. Is that discharge when I'm defensive?
No, that's a defense against emotional closeness,
or I'm insecure about what's happening. So okay.
Yeah.
I think it's a play on words. You're right, Karen. You're right.
It is. Yeah.
It comes down to understanding that anger is not anxiety.
Excellent.
And what we do to manage that. So anger, but anxiety is when I'm feeling emotional or feeling insecure or feeling fearful or feeling sad. No.
Oh, there you are. A tantrum is a discharge of anxiety. Has nothing to do with actual anger. Anger is a calm experience, but it gives us strength. We can be assertive. Perfect.
Wow. See,
perfectly said.
The balance. See, so anger is an important emotion. It's not a negative emotion. I'm learning all this.
No emotions are negative. Yeah. And we can be assertive. That's why I use the analogy of Martin Luther King or Gandhi or Mandela or whatever. Yeah.
Such a beautiful
they were angry, furious.
Of focusing your anger and your your fear into a positive, not a positive, I don't want to use the word positive. Like, so a tantrum is a discharge of anger, has nothing to do with actual anger.
Yeah.
It's expression. It's like frustration. It's like, I can't do something. That's what a tantrum is. Like, I want what I want.
Yes.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I love learning about, I've never seen anger that way. And
How have you seen anger?
well, I saw anger as fighting or yelling or disagreeing or conflict.
So what did you see as standing your ground, as being centered? How would you describe that?
A strength, a certain, like, standing my ground, like, but it wouldn't be from anger. Like Gandhi and Nelson Mandela, like, they're not angry people. They were strong. Wow. What is Joe saying?
Okay, there we are.
As long as the anger is fused with anxiety, and then defense is what we do to try to manage the anxiety. No one in their right mind would want to face anger. It feels awful. But if you diffuse anger from anxiety and defense, there can be healing.
Yeah.
I'm really glad. It is a big subject, Kayleen. It is a big subject. It's a big subject. And I mean, for the movie to be called All the Rage, and because it was something deep, or something very deep. And I was wondering why all the rage? Like, why isn't it all the sadness, all the grief?
Because, as Joe just said, they're fused.
Yeah.
Fearless presence. Yes, Karen. I love that. Karen's writing a chapter in a book at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Karen's a wonderful nurse and an ISTDP,
therapist
in Australia.
Yeah. And she's on her show probably about June or somewhere on YouTube. Anyone who hasn't seen Karen.
Yeah.
And she works in theatre and recovery room, and she uses ISTDP for her patients so that they will not be so anxious, and that their pain management can go down to normal.
Yeah.
So,
Any more questions from the
No. What's been the most healing for the two of you?
Am I saying it for the two of you? When working together? Well, I think Rose and I share, I'll mention, then you mentioned that we share this great desire to want to help people help themselves. And, I think Rose and I go the extra distance with our therapeutic process. Service oriented, we are. I think, and yet Rose and I are learning where we need to play the role as, I think what I want to say is that the relationship that I've been having with my patients since I've worked with Rose, and Rose and I do therapy together with clients and patients, is Rose has taught me how important that relationship is, the trust, the allowing a person to be honest. Like, you will say to Rose will say in a therapeutic process, like, are you anxious about me? And the patient gets to say, yeah. It's like, it's a beautiful interaction. And that's what's been so healing, is that Rose and I, we're in this therapeutic process for a year, and then we get to do it with patients. And it's about relationships. I think that's what I want to answer, Joe. We've learned a lot about the power of relationships. And what I learned in my therapeutic process years ago was that there's me, there's the patient, and then there's the relationship. And all three are very important. And that's kind of what I learned. Rose, what have you learned?
Yes, you are so right, Joe. Yes. First of all, it's been a weird experience talking around globally. It really has, but it's been wonderful. I like doing presentations anyway.
Mhm.
I don't find it difficult to do things like that. But to be able to reach people all over the world, but also it's been wonderful to actually, because I'm so fused with health and that sort of background, to hear other stories of how they've, maybe they've just done a lot of exercise and overcome their pain by finding a diversion. Well and good. I wouldn't have really gone down that road. I wouldn't.
Mhm.
I wouldn't have advised that or
Mhm.
agreed with that. Whereas I think coming from a health discipline, it's sort of
Mhm.
been something that I've had to sort of be open about. And
Mhm.
by actually trying to expose the whole areas, if running is going to divert
Mhm.
you from your thoughts, and then your thoughts don't have to intrude on your life, and then your pain won't be there. So all of that has been an eye-opener for me. So, and
Well, let me say
thank you
that
all.
let me say that in a different way, just how you're saying it, because we know a lot of people that will go running or go smoke a cigarette or go have a drink and the pain will go away or it will lower. And we'll say, if that's what you need to do, okay, but be aware that you don't need that. That if you wanted to calm yourself down, you could do it on your own. I think,
Well,
is that something like
uh,
where you were heading with that?
no, it's through insight, isn't it? It's not really on your own, because you're with yourself. You're in your own presence, so you're not
Right,
alone.
right.
And
That's
a lot of patients are alone, and it's one of those terrible things called loneliness that
yeah,
many of them experience, and that loneliness is expressed in pain.
right, right.
Hi, Jill.
Hi, Joe from Maryland. So, anyone else have any questions for Rose and I? We might be winding down a little bit. It's 11 o'clock here in Israel, and Rose and I also we created a wonderful website. We have a YouTube channel, so if anybody wants to pull an
Stuff we've
all-nighter,
never ever thought of doing. It's
see
all out
50
there now.
shows, 50 shows with Rose on one side and I'm on the other, and I'm saying shalom, and Rose is saying good night. We are beside ourselves in joy. Rose and I don't think we ever get enough of each other. Do we talk like every day for the last year? Just
Yeah.
about. So you can
Oh,
see
thank
our
you, Joe.
shows.
That is so beautiful.
Your vision ahead. Very good. We were supposed to talk about that. Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Joe, down there. Hi, Fabian.
Uh,
So what's our vision? Go ahead, Rose.
oh, thanks, Tovah.
You're welcome.
Are you trying to put me on the spot?
No.
Now, listen, folks, that's called a defense. My response is called a defense. Did you see it in action? Because that's exactly what it is. Tovah came up with, she was responding to the question, but diversified it and put it over to me to stop herself, to give herself a break so that she could digest that. And then she put it over to me, and then I hit it back to her like it was a tennis ball.
Yeah.
But that's what we call a defense. So if you can see that brought up some anxiety in me, because here am I being given a question that I didn't expect and I didn't have an immediate answer for. So I brought up a defense against my anxiety. So you saw it in the moment.
Right.
Now, if you watch your own interactions in your own lives, you can see how you get anxious. And then as soon as anxiety pops up, the defense pops up.
Right.
So spot it in yourself now, from now on, and
Excellent.
see how that works. And what's our vision? Our
Beautiful.
vision is to heal the world. How do you like that?
It's a beautiful vision, and I mean,
Yeah.
Rose and I, we don't see stopping doing this. There are so many guests that we have. We'd like to bring everyone back, Dr. Schechter back, Dr. Schubiner back. one of the visions is that we now would like to start promoting This Might Hurt, and bring it to Israel and to Australia, and have Dr. Schrubener either come live to Australia and Israel and do a Q&A, or we'll have
She's an ambitious woman.
That was your idea, and we'll Zoom him in, or we'll just have Joe Smith come and talk. So This Might Hurt is an amazing film, which is showing 3 to 4 different. It was an amazing film. Okay. If you haven't seen it, that's one vision. 2, we're teaching it. We're going to teach it. Did I interrupt you, Rose? I saw that face.
Probably, but it doesn't matter.
I know that face, and I get very insecure around that face. Anyway, the other vision is Rose and I are going to begin teaching some weekly classes inspired by Dr. John Sarno's Monday night lectures. We're going to be teaching some weekly classes because there are so many people who don't even know what TMS is or ISTDP is, and it's amazing self-help work. Another vision is I just got to get to Australia and meet this woman in person. I got to hug this woman, Joe. I've never hugged Rose, and I'm very heterosexual, but I got to hug Rose. That came from a little anxiety, that statement.
Well, actually, when I was in Israel, I thought, because I was in Tel Aviv, I thought, I'll be able to catch up with her. But of course, she's an hour out of Tel Aviv. I didn't realize. So
right, I'm in the north by the sea. Yeah. Well, we're all by the sea here.
And I never got to Haifa. I wasn't there long enough. Yeah.
And guess what the vision? The vision is, what do you guys want? What do you guys want to see from TMS RoundTable? Most important is that, what is a roundtable? We want to hear from you. You know, Rose and I are very sensitive about talking too much or being like, we don't ever want to say, we're learning from you and you're learning from us. How can we work together? How can we help you help yourself? How can we be better therapists, and we'd love to know who you want to have on the show. We have a beautiful platform that we're blown away. What, you want Joe Smith back? Okay, we'll bring Joe Smith back. But more important is we want to know who you want to have. Hey, we're having Dan Ratner. We're having Dan Ratner on in a few weeks. Somebody said we want. Susie said, "Do you know Crushing Down?" I said, "I've never heard of Crushing Down." So we're having Dan Ratner on. We want to bring a lot of Israeli doctors who want to come on and speak. Just tell us who you'd like to have on the show, and we'll do it. So Fabian said she missed the loneliness expressed in part. I missed the loneliness expressed in pain part. Very interesting point.
Yeah. Well,
yeah. What are we talking about?
If a person is lonely, it's going to be worse. Yeah. Yes. But the thing is that they're not they don't need to be lonely because they've got themselves.
Right.
And that's where the childhood trauma comes in.
Right.
The loneliness is because of being unheard.
Right. And some of the adult work is,
to repair
falling in love with yourself, having a relationship, knowing yourself.
No, I wouldn't call it that. I'd call it acceptance.
Right. But there is a poster I put up about who wants to, like having a love affair with your mind, body, and soul. It is about knowing yourself, Rose. It's about knowing that you're upset, knowing that you're pissed, knowing that you're lonely.
Yeah, exactly.
Accepting.
But also you see your presence process that's where that comes in.
Right. Yeah. Now, Jill had a question. I'm confused with one thing Rose mentioned. She said something about some not being able to heal from just reading TMS books when issues from childhood. Good point, Jill. I don't have any trauma from childhood. What could be the reason I can't heal while doing TMS work for about a year?
Okay, talk to me. Trauma is when you're not heard, when you're not listened to, when other people have got their issues and they're more important than the child's issues. Mm-hmm. It's not that you've got an alcoholic father or you've got a mental health patient mother. It's a whole lot of small cuts to the child's heart. could be being bullied at school, and you can't dare go home and tell the parents, or because the parents might side with the teacher or with the bully, or it's your fault. Why did you spill that milk? It's not taken that you've got a little small hand and you can't hold it, or that anxiety is making a hand shake. There's all those tiny little cuts that happen in a little child's. And if Jill has a look at the tronic,
Edtronic,
video, actually put that up, maybe, Tovah.
I will. I'll send it, Jill. I'll send it to you. It's an amazing video that will help you understand. I will.
It just shows. Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a childhood trauma for us to grow up with anxiety. It could be something so subtle. It's still living in our.
And that's what I was reading in John Fredrickson's, what's his latest book? Co-Creating Safety, Healing the Fragile Patient. He says one of his early comments was, an anxious mother will create an anxious child. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you know what?
And
Jill, don't give up. Don't give up. You're close. I mean, if this is your journey, it's not about a means to an end. This is your journey, and you are healing because you're on the show. You're learning. You're open. You're feeling. You're falling and getting up. You're banging against the wall and saying, "Oh, there's that wall again," and not judging yourself. So you are healing. And feel free to give Rose a call. She can help you out. What is Joe saying? Wait. Broader understanding of childhood trauma, Jill. Great. Small T versus large T. Okay. A subtle trauma.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Like if a parent has got financial issues, relationship issues, health issues themselves, well, they're not always able to be fully connected to the child.
Yes. Yeah, and what Jill's saying is what you tell me, Rose, that if it's happening later in life, it might be harder in some ways because we're now an adult. I mean, somehow it's a pattern.
Okay. Well, okay. Put it another way. If somebody on this chat thing afterwards says something like what Jill is saying, I'll ask them if they had stomach pain when they were a kid, or if they had growing pains, or if they had headaches. So I'll help them make the link that this anxiety has been going on for a long time. And then they can, well, through ISTDP, Jill, you could probably find out what actually happened to you. But chronic pain doesn't just start when you're 20 or 30 or 40. We don't make the connection because one lot of pain goes, like the back pain goes and you've got a neck pain instead. So people don't make the connection to the back pain. They think, well, I lifted something heavy. And then they'll say, oh, well, I slept awkwardly last night.
Right.
Or they'll say, I've got, I don't know, heel pain because I was doing too much running, or the surface was too rough, or whatever. But they've had all these little pains that are all sort of one pain, and the pain is that the heart is hurting.
So true. You know, you touched
and thanks, Joe.
Yeah. What did Joe say?
Yeah. Attachment rupture.
What is that?
That's insecure attachment.
Oh,
and that's what we spend the time repairing.
Yeah.
And that's why, you know, when I talk to people on this program or whatever, I help them see that the suffering has been going on. The abdo pain's been there, the period pain's been there, and all those pains have been there warning you or telling you that something's worrying you.
Wow.
And of course, it's tied to the vasovagal system. But then it gets too complicated to try and do that just on this sort of program.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know, Rose and I agree that you know, chronic pain is not normal, but you know, it's normal to have discomfort and for the body to heal. And that's where Rose is a nurse and me as a chiropractor, we've seen amazing people heal. And so we've seen amazing things heal. We all know a cut heals. Speaking of, it's a wonderful movie, the movie called Heal, but the body was made to heal.
To heal.
To heal. And I like to say that God made the solution before the problem, so we are made whole. We are.
Exactly.
Are you laughing at me? I'm getting a little defensive about that.
No, I think it's awesome what you just said.
Okay,
I had to smile. It was just so lovely.
Thank you. Oh, I like this question, Paula. You came in the ninth inning, Paula. Well, I want to ask Paula what she thinks. Don't answer, Rose. Paula, my love, what do you think? Okay, I hear you. This is my opinion. My dear Paula, everything is TMS if it's chronic. And I'm not like just giving you a mouthful. The body can heal. And a frozen shoulder, as Rose would say, means somebody wants to punch somebody, but that's another trauma story. But the question is, a frozen shoulder is not fun. I'm not making fun. It's very painful. And you got to lose something to realize how much you use it. And there's something stuck. Okay? Muscle tightness is a lack of blood and oxygen. Okay? And why is the brain pulling oxygen and blood from your shoulder? That it's frozen. So frozen shoulder is not normal. Your shoulder gets hurt, it heals. You have a tendon sprain, it heals. So frozen shoulder is TMS. And that's, and again, you can heal that. You can heal it. You can do exercise. You can do ice. You can do heat. You can heat and ice on a frozen shoulder. Break that spasm. But I don't want to diagnose you on this show. I want to, and I didn't mean to make fun of you. I didn't mean to make fun of you. Bye, Joe. Paula.
See what Joe said. Thanks, Joe.
Just answer, Paula. I started something here about punching.
What
should we say to Paula? I started something about wanting to punch somebody.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, remember what you would say if somebody has a neck problem or a leg problem? You'd say, who do you want to kick? Okay, Rose. No, what is about that? Does that kind of mean something? That if it's pain in a certain area, there's some expression in that joint?
Yeah. It's a way of trying to defend yourself. Yeah. You want to react.
Or hold back.
You're holding back.
Or be stuck.
A feeling. Yeah, you're holding back a feeling. That's all. Mm-hmm. And to sort of take a sort of to create a self-reflection, I will often say, well, does that leg want to kick someone, or does that fist want to do something to someone? Just not to create guilt, but to create the idea, yeah, well, I am pretty annoyed with my husband or wife or my kids or whatever. Just so that they can just have a notice that, I am annoyed, which is a lovely cover word for being angry.
And we're talking about, look, let's go back and talk a little bit about Eastern medicine. All the meridians are telling us something's going on with a certain organ or a certain tendon. Reflexology, certain things in the places in the foot all have to do with an organ. Louise Hay, who's brilliant, she didn't make it up, but she discovered about all the different parts of the body, different things hurting, different things happening, sinus problems, allergies, all mean some expression is not happening. So it's the mind body again. We're just coming back again to the source of my mind and body are intimately connected. Now, it was Candace Perth, a scientist, may she rest in peace, who said that the unconscious is the body. And then the mind is unconscious. So we're really, really, it's very scientific. That's what I love about this work, is that I don't think it's new age. I even think most of new age is just repetitive.
Old age.
Yeah. It's repetitive conventional medicine. And what was medicine years ago? Doctors would go into the backyard and pull an herb out of the garden and put it in a bag and come to your house and sit by your bed and help you feel good. You know, what goes around comes around, Rose. We're just here in a cycle, and that's TMS RoundTable. It's a round table. I never thought about that.
Yeah, what Kayleen just said is so right.
Excellent.
Kayleen, thanks for that. Remember that in a way, I've forgotten that saying. When the student is ready, the teacher appears.
Yes.
And I think that's the most important thing for all of us to sort of see.
Yes.
When the student is ready, the teacher appears.
Yes.
There'll be people that have a chronic pain for 30 or 40 or 50 years, and they're not ready. So the teacher isn't there for them.
Yeah. The same thing with Jill. Jill, you're right there ready to get healed. And Paula, you're there. It's happening. There's something you need to look at. And the shoulder pain is the messenger. And the chronic pain, the anxiety, the shoulder pain, it's telling you something. You need to listen, not need to. I don't want to say that. Please try to listen. I'm suggesting that you listen to your shoulder. Go ahead, Rose.
Paula, be aware that there's anxiety going on in your body.
It. Yes.
The anxiety is causing the tension because your striated muscles are holding on tight to something. And if you're aware that you are anxious and that that's part of your anxiety pathway, you're halfway to healing already.
Yeah.
The anxiety is coming up because there's been something going on in your life that you're not happy with and that you've repressed.
Right.
It's a very simple formula, but it's very hard to unwind, but it's so simple.
Yeah.
An issue arises that you're not happy about or that you're not heard, you get anxious. The anxiety is too much to bear, so you get a defense. The defense could be the pain.
Excellent.
So until you can see the original problem, you can't get rid of the symptom. So
I love the way you explain it, Rose. You know, the pain is the last thing to show up. The body's been protecting for a long time, and then the symptom comes. And then
doesn't go away.
Yeah. A gift will appear when the student is ready. The gift that keeps on giving.
That's exactly when I did my ISTDP therapy. That's exactly what I still keep talking about it as the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. And every time I have a somatic type of pain, I know that something's going on in me, and I just have to question what it is, and then it goes.
So in that way, for when people are ready to embrace, the pain is a message. The pain is a wake-up call. The pain can be a gift. If you can look at it, if you can frame it like that, it'd be very powerful to accept that your body's speaking to you and it wants you to listen.
Yeah.
It's a good note
All
to
right,
say.
my lovely darlings. It's 8:28 here.
Okay.
I want to go and have some breakfast.
I'm so happy you haven't got interrupted by any of your grandchildren. And so if anybody wants to go onto our page and send some questions, Rose can answer. I can answer tomorrow morning when I get up. Also, we'd love to hear about any guests that you'd love us to have. Our show is your show. It's a round table, and we love interacting, and we love expressing everything from A to Z. So, Rose, I love you dearly. You look great in red. And
thank you.
We'll meet again.
We will in a few hours.
We will.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Good night.
Erev Tov,
Good morning.
Good night.